In other news, according to the Department of Education, nearly 110,000 public school students from low-income families struggle to afford school lunch fees. Those who are eligible for free school lunches are afraid to eat due to the poverty stigma circled around it. Now, advocates say the solution to the problem is universal free lunch. Joining us now to discuss this issue is the Executive Director of Community Advocate Food, Liz Accles, and we thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me here.
Good to have you. As we talk about this here, obviously, we here in the Bronx have a huge problem. The city has a huge problem. Yep. And I know this was a part of the mayor's campaign promises. Where do we stand right now?
So right now, we have universal free school lunch in middle schools, 6th through 8th grade middle schools, and some high schools, select high schools and some elementary schools. And we're pushing for universal free school lunch to be truly universal and be available to all students, all 1.1 million students.
And so when we talk about universal free lunch for students, give us a little bit of a background as to what exactly that means for everybody, because somebody out there may not be fully aware.
Okay. So the idea of universal free school lunch is right now, and for decades, all across the country, not just in New York City, there's a tale of two cities in the cafeteria. And anyone that's been in public schools over the years knows this, and what happens is children are separated by income in the school lunch program. And over the years, it's become more subtle, but children still know who's eligible and who's not. Mm-hmm. So there are children who are eligible for free lunch. 75% of New York City public school students have income under $35,000 a year for a household of three. And so that's 780,000 students are eligible for free lunch right now. But 250,000 of those students don't participate in the program, even though their families are struggling to make ends meet. Mm-hmm. There are additional 110,000 children who are above the income cutoff, whose families have to pay for school lunch and don't have the $1.75 to pay. So there are literally hundreds of thousands of New York City public school students whose families are struggling financially, who sit out of lunch at lunchtime saying they're not hungry or don't like the way the food looks because the poverty stigma, especially as children get older, they start dropping out of the program. And for many children whose family are above the income cutoff, they worry about accruing bills that their family can't pay.
So free lunch now would definitely, in your perspective, really just put everybody on an equal playing field.
That's exactly right. That's the idea. The notion of public schools is that children shouldn't be identified or divided by income. And this would just make this part of the school day and put everyone on an equal playing field.
What other benefits would come through this?
Well, it's a few different things. As you mentioned, this was one of the mayor's campaign promises. This is a basic education equity issue, health equity issue, and anti-hunger initiative. There is really not one thing for such a modest investment that can address these three basic issues across the board. So we have terrible income disparities in the city, and many children in families who are struggling to make ends meet. And this means children eating or not eating. And a hungry child can't thrive in school. So how do you talk about any education equity initiative, no matter what you say, without making sure that it's built on the premise that all children are starting the school day and getting through the school day with food in their stomach?
We talked in the last segment about the possible cuts that are coming through the 2018 budget, federal government, the president's revealing that. Given the fact that there's so many cuts that are coming, food stamps, Medicare, possibly on the table, any concern here about how this might affect what you're looking for?
Well, I think there are significant concerns. The mayor just spoke about the president's budget and about 500,000 children that will be at risk just for the food stamp cuts that the president's proposing. I agree with Lee that this probably won't move through both houses of Congress, but it sets the stage for something pretty bad. So we know there are bad things coming down from the federal level, and New York City is a city with resources, and making sure children can eat in school is something that's very local, completely doable on the city level, maximizing that program.
So where do you see things going from here?
Well, we're kind of leading up to the end of this budget session, We're in an election year. This was one of the mayor's campaign promises. We have near unanimous support in the city council, the public advocate. We have all 5 borough presidents pushing for this. Every school-based union, the DC 37, United Federation of Teachers, and the Principals Union. So we are feeling hopeful that the mayor will come through this year and make sure that free school lunch is available truly universally.
Yeah, we reported on that here, and our Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr., of course, one of those who co-signed on it, along with all 5 of the borough presidents who wanted to do that. I wanted to let you have the opportunity to tell a little bit about the Lunch for Learning campaign.
Yeah, so the Lunch for Learning campaign, as I was mentioning, is a coalition-based campaign that Community Food Advocates is spearheading. Over 200 organizations, as I mentioned, almost all the city council members. This is a campaign for universal free school lunch. It's a priority of the city council, again, public advocate, borough presidents, pediatric organizations. Everyone is saying, let's get this done. Let's make sure children in schools are starting on an equal playing field in terms of food. This is something that can make the city more affordable. So for a family above the income level, 110,000 families above the income level, between $35,000 and $50,000 a year, it can be often the difference between paying an electric bill or making sure your child gets lunch in school. And this is something that just should not be something that families and parents have to consider.
If I got people out here watching right now and they want to say, listen, how do I support this? I agree with this. What do I do? Is there a campaign they can get on board? What do they do?
Sure. So our website is lunch with the number 4, learning, lunch for learning, nyc.org. You can go on there and sign up, and we'll get you involved.
So as we're talking about students who have to qualify right now, what's the number of students that have to qualify pretty much for free lunch now?
Well, it's about 780,000 students are eligible now, right? And out of 1.1 million. But again, 250,000 or a third of those students don't participate, largely due to the poverty stigma that's long been associated with the programs. Teenagers, preteens, peer pressure is intense, and you can't underestimate what that means. Students in that age group really will just sit on the sidelines and go through the day hungry. Or if they have $1 and can get a bag of chips and something to drink, they'll do that and just kind of keep something in their stomach. So this is something that, should just be available to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Liz Accles, Executive Director of Community Food Advocates, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you very much.
All righty, listen, stay tuned. We got more show, another segment coming up right after this. There'll be more open right after these messages.